Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Barbarian and this is Victoria 3's Dev Diary number 29. We have arrived at the Dev Diary that is the very first one of the year. Very happy to see it. I mean, you don't always get to celebrate finally being out of the drought, and I certainly like that. Now, I will say before we jump into this, I've done this one after action report, right? The PayPal one. I am interested in the Canada one because there's a lot in there about social upheaval that could be interesting to analyze, to talk about, but I would like to see your opinion. Let me know in the comments whether you are interested in an analysis of that on the channel. I would cut it down much more. I would primarily look at the posts that are really relevant to explanation, right? But let me know what you think, because right now I'm like, I don't want to spam AAR videos. You know, it's not the most interesting kind of content, at least to me. But if there is a discussion base and if you're interested, then let's do it. Now, with that being said, let's do the Dev Diary number 29 user experience. So this one is, and you have to realize these always come a bit of a in a packed bunch, right? Because ultimately they make Dev Diaries and then make an update video at the end of the month or at the start of the next month, making it so that they need to be somewhat coherent in their themes. So UI, UX, everything related to this, right? Maybe the tutorial as well is something that they will be giving towards us here. Makes me think, actually, maybe even journals in January here. They did say in a few weeks we would see journals, right? And journals might be a UI issue as well, or rather a user experience issue. Either way, I have always personally believed that the UI is something incredibly vital. Having played these games since 2005, you will be looking at an evolution that really leaves you baffled. At least it leaves me baffled. When I look back to the games that I played back then, Hearts of Iron 2, Victoria Revolutions, that sort of stuff, the UI was so bad that you legitimately, and I mean this was a meme, it kind of is still a meme, but much less so, but you legitimately had to play like 500 hours before you understood anything at all. It didn't explain anything, or the concepts at best you could Google them, and I'll be honest with you, back in 2005, I didn't really Google anything. I was, you know, not old enough to really understand how to do that. So yeah, but listen, what I will tell you is UI is insanely important. I see it today with non-Paradox games. I think personally that a large reason for why Paradox is so dominant in the grand strategy sector is that they have developed further tech that other countries just don't have. If I open CK3, I will have a super easy time to jump in and to just play. If I open any other game that is oriented towards grand strategy, that is oriented towards maybe, for example, the Middle Ages as well. There was one about secret cults not too long ago, I think last year or the year before. The UI will kill me. The UI will simply kill me. So this is the entire UX is insanely important, and that is what they're going to give to us today. Don't, you know, be let down if you wanted to see something mechanical. This is UX indeed. It's still interesting. My name is Henrik, and I am a UX designer on PDS. I've been a part of the Victoria 3 team for almost the entirety of the project, and since I'm about to take a few months of parental leave, congratulations on the child or children, I wanted to leave you with a brief summary and overview of the thoughts and ideas that form the foundation of the user experience, UX, design in our game. Also, say hello to Aaron, whom I have written this Dev Diary in cooperation with. Aaron has been my UX Padawan for the past year and will be shouldering the UX while I'm gone. Aaron, good luck to you. Basically, our end goal is to make the game more approachable and accessible so that we can make it even deeper and more complex. Complexity should not come from not knowing where to find something and why something happened, but from the deep simulation and game mechanics at the core of our game. The more accessible the information and interactions can be, the more complex we can make that information and those interactions. This is a huge part. There has been for a while now, and I mean, it's honestly, it's even gotten weaker. I'll just be outright honest with you. I think it's gotten weaker. There was like a bit of a wave, and then it sort of went off, where people said, oh, look at EU4, for example, compared to EU3. It's a simplification. It's much easier, and EU4 doesn't have the best UI design, I'll tell you outright. But what people, in my opinion, back when this came up, when it was accused of, you know, EU4 being much less complex than EU3, which it certainly isn't. I'll just be honest with you, and I need to stop saying outright. But the way I see it is, what people perceived as a lessening in complexity was actually just better UI, making it so that you don't need to exactly know where to look for what information to then grasp which concept and then have a gameplay decision that you can make. Old Paradox games, and this is not really something that I'm saying against these games because they just were developed under different circumstances. Many indie games today have very bad UI because they are developed under very limited circumstances, right? And at least back in the day, Victoria 2, I believe, was made by like 7 people in a year. They weren't UI experts, right? Like they weren't UX experts. And the way I see it is that things have gotten insanely much better, just to an insane degree. The advancements that we have seen when it comes to UI are absolutely crazy, and they doubtlessly, in my mind, have allowed for more complex gameplay systems that otherwise would have never been possible. I mean, the entire thing about, for example, the way, and this is just one gameplay mechanic, right? But the way stress works, the way any gameplay mechanic works in CK3, for example, the way the traits work and how their impacts are, CK2 was a lot more nebulous. CK2's UI is a huge mess because it's all tacked together. They didn't anticipate that they would be supporting that game that came out in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. They didn't anticipate supporting that game until, like, what, 2018, I think, is when they stopped supporting it. That is insane for the time of that game. But it also made it so that the UI felt really, really bad. And CK3, on the other hand, everything is very easily understandable. You don't need to Google a single gameplay system. I had these videos up where I basically sat down and said, did you know in CK2 you can actually have sub-commanders in your flanks? Did you know in CK2 it's better to have everything in one flank so that you can wipe out the other? People didn't know that because it wasn't apparent anywhere. It didn't give itself away anywhere at all. And with that in mind, I will say that the new UI generation of, Paradox games is significantly better and then allows for more complexity. CK2 had a lot of complexity in its fighting and none of it actually mattered. Because, well, nobody actually used it. Nobody knew about it, right? And the way CK3 does it now is at the very least something where you can see all of the components and understand them and then actually utilize them. Having a component that the player can't realize exists is basically having, like, no component, Right, so that is the goal for them, basically to say we have these gameplay systems and we want you to always be informed how they can be used, because otherwise we don't really have complexity, we just have difficulty of dealing with the interface. Right, and that is why they have 3 UX pillars. The right information at the right time, so that means they don't want to spam you with information, they don't want to always have information present, especially the old games. EU4, for example, does that. There are chunks of information that are always present, even if you do not care about them. And then the second one is clear feedback about cause and effect. So basically showing you what an action might do instead of having you look, okay, what do we have here in Victoria 2? Is this going to be profitable? Let me just check what the actual market price. No, this should all be in one window. This entire decision of what factory you should be building should be in one window. Clearly separate actions from information. So that's just basically having a clean UX. I like it. These are good pillars. These are standard pillars, I feel, or should be standard pillars at this point. But this definitely makes it clearer if you have never thought about UX. Nested tooltips, as made famous by CK3. I love nested tooltips. In CK2, I would have to frequently look stuff up. I've played so much CK2. My god, I have all of the achievements in CK2. But frequently I would have to go, okay, wait a minute, what does this exactly do? What's the chance here? How does this continue, right? What is my trade? What exactly does it do? What is the implication here? CK3, you hover over it, it tells you exactly what a concept is. There are so many mods that really utilize this. God Hazard does it like crazy, for example. We, of course, also have Way of Kings. I mean, Elder Kings 2 does it as well. You can't play that yet, but I've played it, right? They do amazing work with the nested tooltips, and it's huge that it's also in Victoria 3, although it was expected, let's be honest. We use it both for game concepts and for getting more detailed breakdowns of numbers, and boy, do we have numbers. This allows us to achieve parts of the first UX pillar, the right information at the right time. Instead of having to explain every single detail and anecdote in a single humongous tooltip, we can focus on the most essential and important information for the current context, and leave any information that might not be directly tied to this context for the nested tooltips to cover. Big fan. I hope that this is a trend that most certainly, is picked up by the rest of the grand strategy sector as well. Most people don't have it. John Schaefer's At the Gates actually had, it came out in like 2019, I think, that had nested tooltips. Could have been such an amazing game. John Schaefer had some really good concepts that sadly didn't really pan out. But what I'm saying is that nested tooltips should become the industry standard, quite frankly. They are so vital. If you've played CK3, you will know that. Now let's take a look at this. You have a tooltip right here. I assume this is population. The taxation of these people are your main source of income. Their loyalties and demands will either work for you or against you. And then if you hover over taxation, so this is clearly marked as something you can hover over. Taxation can be money deducted from the pop's wages or consumption taxes added to the price of goods, right? Literacy, let's take a look. So this is Texas, right? Yeah, it's Texas. We're a republic. We are intelligentsia, landowners. We are the church, and we are petite bourgeoisie. We are Dixie, 36 arable land or units of arable land. We are Protestants, and we are primarily struggling. Yeah, that's not that good. Texas itself right here, we have, this is the primary tooltip. So this is the construction queue in Texas. The sugar plantations are 68.8% finished, and if you hover over that, over Texas, that is, you will get this information. Market capital of the Texan market is Texas. So this is in the state of Texas, and this is the capital of the Texan market, of course, making it so that this market capital actually gets additional infrastructure. This is important to know. You can hover over every single one of these. You can even hover over that one, state. I really like that. So all of this is hoverable. Look at that, unemployed 17.9k people. That's not looking too good. Average standard of living, 9.3, we already saw that, right? The GDP is 100%, and now I need to ask. No, the GDP breakdown will come somewhere else. And then we have the taxation here in the state region Texas, right? Of course, nested tooltips come with their own set of challenges. This is where we are happy to allow for a lot of customization and tweaking. For example, how do you want the tooltip to look? Mouse tendency, timer lock, or action lock? Oh, lock, right? If you choose the timer lock, how long do you want the timer to be, etc.? This is also a feature in CK3, and I highly recommend, and I know many out there aren't doing this yet in CK3, I highly recommend that you do action lock. If you do an action lock, you press the middle mouse button, and that will lock it immediately. Press it again, and it will unlock. I can't believe how many people are playing with either mouse tendency or timer lock. It blows my mind, because you need to wait or you need to move it in a certain direction. Just click a button, right? Makes it much, much easier. Anyway, another thing we show in these tooltips is the next thing on the agenda and what you've been waiting for. Graphs, data visualization. One of the more challenging areas is to clearly give feedback of a value's change over time. In a game with as many interlocking systems as Victoria, giving feedback on how something has changed over time becomes an essential part of the gameplay loop. How can we take several values and show how exactly it has changed over time? You guessed it, line graphs. So, I like this. We've seen this in the interface somewhere else as well. It looks like you basically can always see the last 4 years, which is a very long time to get a good understanding of what has been going on. We've seen this for clout, we've seen this for political strength, and so on and so forth, right? So, this is definitely a good design choice. I think these graphs are... I mean, basically, they are taken from Victoria 2, have been seen as good, they have been confirmed as being a good source of information, and then are being continued, and they're now a bit clearer. I like these graphs, I like the visuals, I think this is generally a good representation. And here we also have, actually, interestingly, the GDP per capita. Now, what I would love, and I don't think that is going to be in, but I would love it if you had the weekly GDP, and then if I pressed, and on GDP per capita, I could see the GDP per capita as a development over time. Because that could also show you whether your GDP grew because more people entered, or whether you were looking, because you conquered something, or whether it grew because you were more productive. I would really enjoy if they'd made that happen as well, although I'm not certain because this looks like a tooltip, and I don't think you can actually, alter something in that tooltip. We could never make a Victoria game without the proper amount of graphs and charts, and yes, you can switch to pie charts for the Victoria 2 purists. I looked at this, right? I looked at this, and I gotta tell you, as it stands right now, I will be playing with pie charts. We've had this debate again and again and again, and it's ultimately, for me, it's a preference. I'm very much open-minded. I could live with this, but when I look at this, this doesn't look very Victorian. You know what I mean? When I look at this, on the other hand, look at this, there's like a little bit. Maybe there's going to be like a frame here as well, something there. Clearly, this is a much clearer way of representing this data. You can see what's going on here. I would also like it if in either of these, it's done in neither here, but if either of these, or both of these, could also have, so here is the absolute number, 3.21 million, and then just a percentage behind it. That would be great. This, I can guess like 80% maybe, something like that, right? But I can't actually guess the full thing. But if we look up here, I'm pretty sure... Oh no, this isn't Texas. This is like, it's a different country. Let me go back here. Right, but anyway, what I'm saying is, I have nothing against this data representation. That's what they always do in big data. That's how I've always seen it. But I personally definitely prefer the pie charts here. Big fan that they left it in. Big fan that you can choose between the two. And right now, pie charts are visually just more pleasing, I will tell you, and the exact numbers I can just read in the list. There is a list format as well. They did say that it's basically like a mini ledger in the back, but anyway, yeah, I personally prefer the pie charts as they are represented right here. What do you think? This is of course a big topic. Is it the best way of representing it? No, but it looks pretty cool. What I do want to say, again, just to stress that, is if we had the absolute and the relative numbers here in this short list, that would be amazing, because right now it's like 3.2 million out of what? Out of apples, pies, you know the math teacher drill. Either way, happy to see pie charts are back on the menu. Numbers that update in real time and predictions. Right, this is one of the coolest features, in my opinion, that Victoria 3 is introducing so far. I'll be honest with you, pie charts are obviously not new, but they are new to Victoria 3 in the sense that no game has really used them this much. Is Stellaris using them? I actually don't know. But no game has really been using them as much compared to, for example, Victoria 2, and now we're back to them. But the rest up here, this tooltips, the nested tooltips, the concepts, etc., that is all in CK3 already, so that is not new. But the real-time predictions, are absolutely awesome. They talked about that, basically changing the entire backend so that they can then represent the data in this way. So let's take a look at it. In most cases in our previous games, you have to tick the game in order to see the effects of things. So if I make a choice, I will only see it pop up in my statistics after, for example, a month has passed, right? In Victoria, we try to make all the immediate effects of your actions available the second you take them. When taking actions that have consequences spreading far and wide throughout the game's systems, it can be really hard to pass if this is a good idea or not without excessive use of spreadsheet software. So we predict things for you, with a nested tooltip breakdown of that prediction value, of course. This is amazing. If I want to build a factory, and I think we can see it right here, obviously we see it right here, but also if I want to upgrade this factory, they will tell me what will happen if I upgrade it. Will the good get cheaper? Will this company make more money, or will they pay their workers more? Ultimately, who will benefit, right? And this is huge. Victoria 2, and forgive me for saying this, I know there's many people that feel very strongly otherwise, but Victoria 2's market, markets, the global market and so on, are genuinely not that difficult to understand. Genuinely. It's just that the information to understand it is nowhere outside of the Wikipedia or you doing trial and error. To understand what makes profit, you just need to have the basic understanding. For example, liquor basically always goes well because it's a basic need that is always required, and it is generally underproduced. On the other hand, here, you get, for example, we know you get a breakdown if you look at a market and it tells you, hey, these goods are very expensive, these goods are very cheap. And then you understand, okay, if I added this to my market, I would benefit or I would lose because I'm already producing too much of this as well, meaning that these workers are now less asked for, less required, meaning some of them might get fired and the standard of living goes down. This sort of stuff was never apparent in Victoria 2. It happened, it was just not very well done, because hey, UX design in 2011 is a completely, 2010 is a completely different challenge from doing it in 2022, where you have 20 years of experience as a company and can actually put that in there. Again, as I said, in my opinion, the biggest edge that Paradox has on smaller grand strategy companies and on any other grand strategy company is that they have all the tech. They can say, we know how to do UX because we did it wrong for decades, as you do, right? But this is pretty good. I'm really, really a big fan of the annual wage of everything being displayed here, basically. That is a big positive for sure. The building panel provides you with all the raw building data you could ever need for you to analyze however you like. For whatever action you may desire, we provide our warmest support in your calculating endeavors with predictions such as the weekly balance when changing production method and predicted earnings of the building if you were to expand it. We have this, I believe, right here. This is if we change our production method. You can see change luxury production method to prioritize glass production. Predicted impact on weekly balance with full employment after goods substitution minus 26.3, so we're losing money basically, or we're losing a benefit that we're currently making. The goods production, porcelain goes down, and that actually costs more, but glass goes up. It doesn't currently cost that much, but I guess for glass actually, that's interesting. If you look at this, this makes it so that porcelain, 50 units of porcelain for 59.9 each, I think, right? And then glass for 49.9 each, but this is expensive glass. This is how you can see it right here. Then we have the goods consumption, dye minus 40 less in total, meaning, okay, dye was fairly expensive, I guess. We are increasing laborers and getting rid of shopkeepers. I assume the laborers are probably paid less, at least that ought to be the case. But you can see how exactly the resources that are in your market being used to this building, where they're coming from and how they're changing. What is this map in the background, you think? Is this like Denmark? It might be. I'm not actually sure. Do they tell us? I don't think they do. Could be Denmark. Here we have the coal mines in Alsace-Lorraine. Predicted earnings per week is 0.95k, meaning it's positive. That is good. The weekly wages, then the tools consumption go down, but the coal production is quite good. The tools are very expensive, but so is the coal. So basically it balances out and you make a good amount of money. Predicted earnings per week, 0.95k. And actually this is really interesting. You almost have half of your total revenue as net profit. That is quite sizable. Goods production, you get coal, you have to spend tools, you need more employees, of course, you have engineers, laborers, and so on. Oh yeah, wow, that's actually crazy that, like, you have engineers and everything. But man, the weekly wages are so cheap. They're so much less expensive than the tools. I mean, I guess you just have a cheap labor market right now. Maybe there are many unemployed people that would love to switch over to the coal mines right here. At the very least, it's paying off for you. And these decisions in Victoria 2, in any other game, you can't make like this. You can't make them on this level of breakdown. This predictive mechanic is something, it's probably outside of CK3's announcement when they announced their nested tooltips. This is the most exciting thing that I have personally seen for UX in this genre. I will always put, Yeah, no, I will always put the encyclopedia that Matthew implemented into CK3. Matthew is one of the programmers that is very active in the modding community as well, so has a lot of conversations with the modders. But I will always, always, always praise that, because it's just so good. You don't need to Google anything, modders can freely use it, it's amazing. This, on the other hand, is also amazing. It gives you a great overview. I think the nested tooltips are still a tad bigger. But this is definitely very important and vital for Victoria 3. I said it, I think, last video or so, or in some Victoria 3 video. I basically stated that as much as I think currently that Victoria 3 with its gameplay systems is doing exactly what it needs to be doing, and that it's doing a great job at trying to be this society emulator, right? The society simulator. What has to be stated is that I don't think this appeals to too many people. It's much easier to, for example, jump into CK3 because what my character thinks of your character is a concept that everybody can understand and identify with. Whether I should be building coal mines or clipper factories, I mean, come on. Let's be realistic here. That's not that exciting in comparison, right? For most people. People are just not very interested in that. But for the people that are interested in it or could be interested in it, you definitely want to make accessing this information, accessing these gameplay features as easy as possible so that they don't shy away just because the UI already basically screams, hey, why don't you spend 500 hours just learning this? This will be a huge tool to get as many people to play this game and to make it as easy to play it, while still keeping the game complex and making it all about the numbers. Now, let's take a look at the focus on the map. This isn't something that surprised me a lot. I know that there is, and respectably, I mean, you know, they're used to it, they are very good at using it, shouldn't be put into any other light, and I'm still missing some map modes in CK3 actually, but this is not surprising to me, although many people that are, for example, coming from EU4 will probably be a bit upset, and I completely understand that, because they are used to having these extensive, these huge selections of map modes they can activate at any given moment. But if you think about it, map modes are actually a very inferior form of information delivery, because you consciously, you actively need to choose what you want to do, what you want to select, what you want to see at this moment in time. When the game should be delivering this information, this is one of the UX pillars, please do remember that, right? But when the game should deliberately be giving you this information exactly when you need it. When you make a certain choice in CK3, the map mode will change. What you're looking at will change. When you're looking at religious interface, the religious map mode enters. When you're looking at, for example, the cultural map mode opens. When you're looking at somebody's war, then the stuff will change into the war map mode, right? You don't have to select anything. And they have the same approach here. Focus on the map. Our map is gorgeous and we want to put more emphasis on it. For example, all events in the game have a location on the map, and if you hover over a state name in any text, that state will be highlighted on the map. This makes it easier to connect the names of things with their representation on the map, giving context to the text and the map. However, one of the coolest contextual information we are creating are map modes. We have map modes connected to most of our information panels, triggering when you open each panel, which gives you the right contextual information at the right time. With the use of icons, numbers, and different heat maps, we enable you to see several layers of contextual information at the same time, without things getting too cluttered and without you having to scroll through a big sheet of data. Basically, they're taking a bunch of ledgers, I believe ledgers is still in, like the actual tables, right? But they're taking all of these and putting them visually on the map, and they will open based on the context of your menu. But if you are an EU4 fan, listen up, albeit all map modes also exist in list form, making it possible to sort the information that is shown on the map, not entirely unlike a visual ledger. It doesn't sound like you can select the map modes on their own. I think you need the menu open, but you can definitely get that done. I mean, again, we have it in CK3 as well. Hoi4 also does this, but Hoi4 also actually... Wait, does Hoi4 do it? No, I think about it. No, I think it very rarely actually opens a map mode via context menu. The building menu, of course, does it, right? But pretty sure that's the only, or one of the few ones. I could be wrong, though. Do let me know. Now, what do we have here? We have a fabric map. I think, at least, this is fabric production. We have the EIC producing a lot of it. And right here, we have fabric in Jiangxi. Production 409, potential base production is 42,000. I don't know what that number means, quite frankly. Can support 706 livestock ranches, current amount 0. Each building of this type can produce at most 20 fabric, and it can also produce 706 cotton plantations, so we'll support them. Right, so this is, I guess, like a resource/building map mode, where you can understand how much land you have that you can build on. Right-click to open context menu. I would be very interested in finding that out. Now, here we have something that I love, the lenses. This is something that we have hypothesized about a lot. And quite frankly, I think these should be a really easy way to get exactly what you want in the right context. Because these are basically like the windows that you know on the left side, for example, CK3, OI4 and whatnot, but they are much more integrated with the map, then giving you the information that you need. In CK3, for example, what is integrated is when you select a character, you see all of their relationships to other characters pan off on the map. This is similar, except it is much more integrated. Every action that you can take on the map, you can take from the 5 lenses: production lens, political lens, diplomatic lens, military lens, and trade lens. So, production right here, political right there, diplomatic, military, and then trade lens. You can already see it. The diplomatic lens here gives you then the option for special buildings, diplomatic plays, diplomatic actions, and break pacts. I think at least this is directly opened via this. You can see a diplomatic play going on right here. Who is this? Are these the Ottomans? I think this might be the Ottomans. And this might be Yemen. I'm actually, honestly, I'm not certain what the hell that is. Is that a pact? I have no idea. Each lens comes with its own map mode. Basically, it is like viewing your country from a specific point of view. I think we are Russia here. And this appears to be the diplomatic attitude towards Russia. Persia doesn't like us, Afghanistan doesn't like us, the Kazakhs, Khiva, and Bukhara like us, the Great Qing love us, apparently, Joseon does not like us, the Ottomans are quite friendly with us, and then the Romanians, Moldavians, right, they are very, very angry, Prussia's friendly. Honestly, we have good relationships, with most of them anyway. Right, so this is one of the most important things, because again, everything, instead of you needing to select the map mode that you want, and this has been a trend, but this cements this trend that they have had in grand strategy games, in Paradox games for a while now. This cements it. Everything that you have in a window is now connected tightly to the map, making it so that you immediately get the information on map that you need. Imperator Rome also is doing this starting in 2.0 very, very extensively. And not any further, because there is no support anymore for Imperator. My god, what a pain. State interactions right here. We have the... So this is basically the production lens right there, and this production lens opens agriculture, resources, and industry, and this is like a macro builder, just as an example, right? State interaction here, you can interact with them. I assume you have many interactions. In this case, it's building interactions. Maybe you also have like decree interactions, focus interactions, troop interactions, but that would be military. But these are the state interactions on the production lens. Yeah, no, I like it. It shows you the relevant information, what you need, and you go from there. This is a really nice implementation of making choices and seeing the direct impact and the direct, connectivity of it. Right-click menus. The map interactions in the lenses are take on the macro builder. That is when you know what action you want to take, and then you select what type of entity to perform that action on. There you go. So these are the lens interactions, just as I mentioned. On the other side of the coin, we use right-click menus. So when you know what entity you want to perform an action on, so instead of getting a list of the states, right, you click on a state here because you want to do something very specific, you right-click. On the other side of the coin, right, you right-click, and then select an action from a list of potential actions. We have this for states, markets, characters, buildings, interest groups, and goods. So anytime you see any of this in the game, you can right-click on them to get a list of actions you can perform. Right, so Landfang here, you clicked on the country Landfang, and what it does is it opens both the country interface and the state interface. If there was, for example, a good overview right now, because you were looking on the good interface, you could right-click and then maybe get the good, something like that. I don't think so. I think we can't cancel Encourage Resource Industry here, because they are doing this. It's not us, it's them, right? But we do see what they're doing here. That's interesting. You could zoom to the state capital. Who cares? Zoom to West Borneo, which is the capital state of this country. Open diplomacy, open improving relations, damaging relations, and expel diplomats. So these are like hot actions, basically. I like that they are working with the map as much as they are, because Victoria 3, CK3 has it very easy to a degree. You work with characters. Characters are easy to understand. They're very tangible. They're very tangible characters. And the outcome of that is that you can very easily find out who you want to be talking to. Look at the Holy Roman Emperor, Holy Roman Empire, and you want to be talking to the Emperor, right? Or want to be talking to the Emperor. That is basically how that works. Victoria 3, since everything is numbers and regions and maps, difficult, unless you connect everything to the map, like, for example, the population, of course, as well. All of these interactions being this tied to it, love it. Just great fan. Empty states, often forgotten but extremely important. This is the feedback of dead ends, such as looking at the urban buildings tab of a state with no urban buildings. A useful empty state will let the player know what's happening, why it's happening, and what to do about it. In a state with no urban buildings, we should of course tell this to the player, but also include the potential urban buildings which the player can build that state. I mean, honestly, this one, this is only one of many examples, and you'd be surprised how often the simple yet important UX design aspect is forgotten. The empty state tells the player what that screen could be populated with and what the player can do about it. So here, Basically just says, want to build an urban building? You can. This just says you have none of these resources exploited, but you could build all of this, because those are the resources you have, and then we have agriculture, and it's clearly already something present here, right? This is just building slots. It gives you exactly what it has. Yeah, building slots. Classic stuff, I think. Should you get an economics degree before you play Victoria 3? No. Despite Victoria 3's immense depth and complexity, our intention is still to allow you to learn even the most advanced concepts the game is based on as you play. One aspect of this is the tutorial, which we are putting more focus onto than ever before, and will cover in detail in any future dev diary. Another aspect is through tool-tippable game concepts, which work more like an integrated dictionary or rulebook. When you see such a concept in text, such as POPs, dividends, taxes, or market price, you can tooltip it to get an explanation of what it means and references to related concepts and mechanics. This powerful tool, together with the nested tooltips, allows us to design and explain anything in the game without writing a novel in each tooltip, and as a player, you can choose to deep dive into any peculiarities as you see fit. I can't read anymore. Right here, we have the standard of living, then we hover over POP, and you will see POP. POP is a build, right? Group of people sharing the same culture, religion, work in the same building in the state, and share the same profession. They use the money they earn from their work to buy goods, which decides their wealth, which in combination with other factors determine their standard of living. They can support interest groups or be politically inactive. A POP has a number of working adults and a number of dependents. And then you can hover over any of these, and you are good to go. I would love what Guide Me is. I would love what this is all about. Anyway, maybe a tutorial thing. Accessibility features. Last but not least, we cannot talk about UX without mentioning accessibility, and boy are we happy to have something never before seen in any PDS game. Color blindness mode for text. We have it on our roadmap to make this feature work with more things in the game as well. We also have worked hard to get to a point where the UI scaling should work even better out of the box than previous releases. Right here we have default mode, Tritanopia mode, and Protanopia and Deuteranopia mode. This is normal. This is the second mode, right? Okay, much more intense colors, and this is no longer red, it's blue. And then we have this is blue, and this is red. Look at that. It seems to be working, although, wouldn't you want to color these as well? But they did say they're working on it. I love these accessibility features. Too many games are too short on it. It's just so easy, or, well, it's not easy, but it's so important, and something that is very often overlooked. So this is very nice. Now, next week, Kenneth will be here, the 2D art lead, and he will guide us through the closer look at the UI design of Victoria 3. Very interested in that, but we shall see for that next week. For the moment, just let me know what you thought about this dev diary, what you think about pie charts versus the area chart, and let me know what you think about the AAR topic. Now, with that being said, for the moment, I'll see you later, alligator.